Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, joined as ever by Riley Fessler. How are you, Riley?
Pretty good.
And Minna Stein. How are you, Minna?
I'm happy to be diving into the headlines.
Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to dive right into the headlines. Who wants to start?
I'm starting today. Special Counsel Jack Smith has filed a revised indictment against former President Donald Trump in the election interference case, reflecting changes required by a recent Supreme Court ruling. The updated indictment removes claims about Trump's attempts to use the Justice Department to advance false election fraud claims and clarifies that his actions were in his capacity as a candidate, not as a president. It also eliminates references to Jeffrey Clark, a former Justice Department official involved in the case. Trump has condemned the new indictment as part of a, quote, witch hunt and has called for its dismissal.
Yeah, but of course, what Smith was doing here was redoing the indictment so that it would meet with the revised sense of the law post the Supreme Court decision on immunity. Also post the Supreme Court decision on what obstruction of official actions of the government were. And he did this in an interesting way because he went to a new grand jury and presented the information to the new grand jury. And the new grand jury came to the conclusion that the old grand jury, and in fact 4 other grand juries have come to, which is that Trump very likely committed a bunch of crimes. But it also has the effect of relieving Smith of the obligation that he would have had otherwise to essentially conduct a mini trial in front of the judge to explain what his case was, in light of the new law. And that would sort of tip his hand to the defense, and it would have made it harder for him to win his case. So this was a canny move by Smith in the eyes of legal observers, and it brings us closer to Trump being held accountable if ... lots of ellipses. Imagine all the ellipses in the universe. Trump loses the election. If he wins the election, he throws this out. Doesn't mean anything. So that's just one more thing to factor in. Riley.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that Ukraine's recent rapid incursion into Russia, resulting in the capture of nearly 600 Russian soldiers and 100 settlements in the Kursk region, is part of a broader strategy to end the war. Zelensky emphasized that Ukraine has no plans to annex the captured territory and intends to present his peace plan to U.S. leaders, including President Joe Biden and presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Intense fighting continues in eastern Ukraine, particularly in the Donbass region. Meanwhile, Russian officials, including Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, dismissed Ukraine's peace efforts, and tensions remain high around the Kursk nuclear power plant, which has been the target of drone strikes.
And the IAEA has said that there's possibility of a nuclear accident in the Kursk region as a result of this initiative. That would be a very, very troubling development for a lot of reasons, and is one of the things that we might look at as a potential October surprise in this presidential campaign year. As far as Zelensky's peace plan goes, anything that gets us to peace is good. But it seems unlikely to me that Zelensky's peace plan is going to involve anything like ceding to Russia the territories Russia wants to seize, or has seized and wants to hold. And therefore, the likelihood of any peace plan at this particular state of affairs seems somewhat remote.
Farhan Al-Qadi, the first Israeli hostage rescued alive from Hamas's tunnel network in Gaza, has been hailed as brought back to life by his family. Al-Qadi, an Israeli citizen who has been held captive since October 7th, is in stable condition following a complex rescue operation by Israeli special forces. The rescue marks the 8th successful recovery of a hostage by the Israeli military, but is the first from within Hamas's tunnel system. The operation has brought renewed attention to the ongoing efforts to rescue and release the remaining hostages, with negotiations for a potential ceasefire for hostages deal continuing.
Yes, so it's worth noting here that the escaped hostage here is a Bedouin, an Israeli of Arab descent, and he facilitated the escape partially on his own. Our friend Noga Tarnopolsky noted that Prime Minister Netanyahu reached out to him with a phone call because he thought it was good news. And that last week, when 6 hostages were returned dead, he didn't reach out to any of those families, which reveals more cynicism on the part of Netanyahu. Raleigh.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is seeking to reset the UK's relationship with the European Union by discussing a significant economic and defense agreement with German leaders during a 2-day visit to Germany and France. In Berlin, he met with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz to discuss a new pact focused on enhanced bilateral military cooperation and collaboration in trade and energy. The discussions also reflect concerns over potential reductions in U.S. military support for Ukraine if Donald Trump returns to the White House, prompting Britain and Germany to explore closer defense cooperation. Following his meetings in Germany, Starmer will continue his visit in Paris, where he plans to attend the Paralympics opening ceremony and hold talks with French President Emmanuel Macron.
Yeah, he's getting off to a decent start, but I'm sure that he came away from the meetings with Schultz, was, concerned that this is a guy who doesn't want to move too quickly on anything, is a little overly cautious on Ukraine. And the British, regardless of political party, have been somewhat more overtly supportive of the Ukrainians. All these people are concerned about the potential return of Donald Trump, and I am sure that is a subtext that will run through all of these conversations through November, because it really does change the whole formula for Europe, for the alliance, for Ukraine, for the global economy, for just about everything. Minna?
Well, speaking of a Trump comeback, our last story is a more fun story about Trump campaign nonsense. Donald Trump has launched a new series of digital trading cards known as the America First Collection, featuring various images of himself, including him dancing and wearing a superhero suit. And it's also important to note that he's very buff and jacked in the photos as well, and very young looking.
As in real life.
Much like in real life.
Yeah.
Priced at $99 each, the NFTs offer perks like a gala dinner with Trump himself or a physical card with a piece of his debate suit. The release follows the success of his previous NFT collection, which sold out quickly despite initial ridicule. The launch comes amidst a decline in NFT sales, and as Trump faces competition from Vice President Kamala Harris, who has significantly outpaced his fundraising efforts.
Yeah, well, this answers the question nobody really wanted an answer to, which is what's stupider than buying an NFT?
Well, my question is, how many do you guys have?
Yeah.
Are you close to 75 yet?
Riley's got the whole collection.
If we get a gala dinner with Trump, can we expense that to the business? Is what I want.
No. But having said that, Trump does 2 things. That's all he's done his whole life. One, he tries to scam suckers out of money until whatever his latest scam is fails. And he tries to avoid accountability for his various scams and crimes. That's all he does. That's what he's doing now. This is not a presidential campaign. What he's trying to do is raise money, selling all sorts of ridiculous things, and be elected president, not because he wants to help the country, not because he has any sort of vision for America's future, but because he doesn't want to go to jail. And this is just Trump acting in his narrow, venal, gross self-interest. Hopefully a majority of Americans will realize that and deny him the pleasure. But folks, even if you're on the fence about voting for Trump, don't buy a bunch of Trump branded electrons. It just it's just it just doesn't make any sense. This whole NFT thing was so dumb, and Riley does have a whole drive, sort of set up like a safe almost, because it's full of those ape NFTs, which he was really fond of.
Yeah, I've lost thousands on those, so thank you for reminding me of that.
Trump
Yes.
released this ad, and then recently Harris released an ad also. And if you watch the ads next to each other, Trump's ad is like, I am releasing these new trading cards, and they're all of me, and this is what people are saying about me, and I don't know if I agree with them, but I'm gonna say it and agree with them anyways. And then Harris's ad is like, my mom struggled to save enough money to buy us a house, and I want to make sure that nobody else has to struggle like that to buy a house. And it's like, we're going to do this, and what can we do to make a better country? And it just, when you watch the ads next to each other released at a similar time, it just creates this extremely stark comparison of like the me campaign versus the we campaign. And I don't know how anyone could have a hard decision with that, but some people do. So
I think she's trying to make a point. I think she's trying to make a point, Riley. I don't know. I don't know if you're picking up on this, but I think she doesn't think very highly of the Trump campaign.
What gave it away?
That you heard it here first, folks. The Trump campaign is pretty bad.
Yeah, and I just want you to know that Minna's from Florida, and if she feels this way, that means Florida could go. She's.
I think it
right?
could.
It could, right?
Yeah, it's sad that Ohio is now a lost cause, my homeland, but it is what it is.
I think my home, the state in which I was born, which is Illinois, I think the Democrats can win, right? Can't they?
Sure.
Don't Democrats win Illinois because of Chicago or something?
Yes.
Anyway.
My fingers are crossed for Florida. We'll see.
Well, I don't know. Right now, this week, what do we have? We have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on a bus tour of Georgia. Mm-hmm. So that does sort of suggest things have shifted somewhat. And it's not just, trying to go and get votes out of the urban areas. There's a real push to get votes out of rural Georgia as well. If they can do that, well, then a lot of other things are in play. So we will watch this very closely here on the DSR Daily, but we'll also watch other developments. If you didn't listen to our great podcast yesterday with Simon Rosenberg and Tara McGowan, go listen to it now. It's the kind of super insight into what's happening in the election campaign that you won't get anywhere else. Really in-depth, insightful, and powerful stuff. And the DSR Daily, the DSR Weekly show is going to also take place later today. So there's a lot to choose from here. A great Still of Consciousness, right, Riley? That was really cool. Interesting Still of Consciousness.
Yeah, another good one of those that'll be coming out a little bit later in the week, but stay tuned for that. I know people really enjoyed the last one as well, and this one I think is kind of a good continuation of that conversation as well.
Yeah, it's more of a philosophical question as well as a look at applied AI. It's very, very interesting. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting stuff here every day. So don't just listen to us, although obviously you are listening to us now, and we're grateful for that. Go listen to some of these other things. Until then, thanks, Minna. Thanks, Riley. Thank you, everybody. Don't buy those NFTs. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.